Welcome back to the start of the work week, everybody. I hope everyone had a great Labor Day long weekend. I actually I flew all the way from Vancouver to Toronto for a friend's wedding. I saw some family and I saw some additional friends, and I learned a lot actually from my quick weekend trip to Toronto. One is that Ontarians, specifically in Toronto, are being taxed to absolute death. It makes absolutely no sense that people in Toronto who own a home have to pay for parking on their own street and in their own driveway. They're being taxed for that. So good luck to Torontonians. I feel for you. And with the new mayor, double good luck. And also just the house affordability and the mortgage crisis that's happening here in Canada. I've got friends that can't afford houses, even though they have dual income, and the friends that do have houses are, struggling because they were kind of swindled into doing variable mortgages, which is something that I actually almost did as well. And some of them are paying as much as $7,000 to $8,000 a month in interest alone. So that's kind of unreasonable, if you ask me. And well, yeah, it made me really appreciate my position and, the house that I own and the very small mortgage that I have, and it kind of humbled me. So yeah, thanks Ontario for sucking so much that I actually like my life a little bit more here in BC. Welcome back to another video, everybody. I want to encourage you to give a like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps grow the channel. We're on route to 400,000 subscribers, which would be technically 1% of Canada's population, which is really huge and quite humbling. We're going to be looking at a few different stories here. First, we got Tamara Leach, whose trial begins today. Then we're going to get into the G20 and what Trudeau is up to and how he's pretty much sabotaging global relations with other countries. Then we're going to take a look at Bank of Canada, interest rates, and Pierre Poilievre to wrap it all up. So buckle up, brace yourself. I hope you stick around for the full thing because we got a lot of different topics we're going to cover. First up is, as I said, Tamara Leach and her legal team surrounded by veritable media circus. This is Karima on Twitter who captured Tamara approaching the courthouse. There she is. For those who don't know, Tamara Leach became somewhat the face of the Freedom Convoy. Fun fact, that was actually a happy accident. We're going to get into her backstory here once the video clip is over, but she was not a founding member of the Freedom Convoy, from my understanding. The Freedom Convoy was already in motion. Tamara was somewhat of a political activist already and kind of grabbed the convoy by the reins and helped push it to what it became. That's a lot of media.
What's the basis for this defense? Why wasn't this criminal? How are you feeling, Tamara?
A lot of freedom-loving Canadians support Tamara. I hope you do as well. Obviously, we supported the Freedom Convoy. It's pretty much what helped build this channel to what it is now. And she's a political prisoner, one of Canada's biggest political prisoners, I guess, aside from the people that are still in jail for the Coots, blockade that happened. But let's take a look at Tamara on Wikipedia so we can all kind of be caught up here. Tamara is a Canadian organizer for the far right, is how Wikipedia has labeled it, Yellow Vest protests, the Maverick Party, and the Canadian Convoy protests in Ottawa. She's a musician and a former logistics worker. I believe that she worked in logistics and doing a lot of admin work for Alberta companies. She has been politically active, and the Freedom Convoy was deemed as a occupation, which the lawyer of Tamara has said that's actually quite offensive given the war in Ukraine and the occupation that's happening there. So comparing a Ukrainian occupation to a bunch of truckers and Canadians that showed up in Ottawa, honked horns, and protested, government overreach doesn't seem very comparable to any extent. And so I really hope the best for Tamara and any of these political prisoners, because it just seems so ridiculous that this is even a court trial, that this is even ongoing. We all know that it was peaceful. There was no acts of violence, and anything that resembled violence had absolutely nothing to do with the Freedom Convoy. When you have a massive amount of people show up for an event, you can't possibly say this person was a part of the event or were there to, celebrate the event, or they were just passerbyers. You can't make that distinction, but the police, the government have made that distinction themselves and grouped everyone together, which is obviously not very good. And then they've also made it illegal to protest with vehicles, which is why part of the reason we're in this position that we are in. But stay tuned for, upcoming videos for Tamara Leach. They are in court right now, so there's nothing that I can do. I can't just pull content out of a magic hat and show you what's actually happening. So in upcoming videos, that's why you're going to want to be subscribed with post notifications, because I will be providing those updates as they come. Now to look at what Trudeau's doing with the G20. The war in Ukraine is expected to block the consensus at G20 as Trudeau visits Asia. Observers say division over Ukraine, climate change make joint G20 project unlikely. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is headed to 2 international summits this week to push for expanded trade and closer ties with parts of Asia. The goals are likely to be overshadowed by Russia's war on Ukraine. Trudeau and International Trade Minister are attending the Association of Southeast Asia Summit in Jakarta, Indonesia from September 5 to 6. And then I think 7 and 8 or around then is when the G20 is actually happening. With the G20 assembly still split over the war in Ukraine and other burning issues such as climate change, experts don't hold out any hope for a similar outcome this year, which is horrible because I understand that Ukraine wants to be a part of NATO and UN and all that stuff. And they have a pending application, but they are not there yet. And for Canadians, for the rest of the world, for UN, for G20, for G7, whatever, to inherit this war, it just seems like a really, really bad move for the world leaders to say, yeah, we understand that Russia is a superpower and they're, got ties to China, North Korea. You know what? Let's actually bring you into our house and then be a part of the war so that they can officially attack us. Seems like the wrong move. A lot of people disagree with this. A lot of people empathize with what is happening. There's a lot of controversies with the specific war in Ukraine with neo-Nazis and yada, yada. That stuff I'm not too familiar with, and I don't want to dismiss as a conspiracy theory because a lot of those things are actually true. I just don't know enough to talk about it right now in this moment. But a lot of controversy with the taxes as well. America's paying billions and billions of dollars in their taxes without the consent of the Americans to go and fund the war in Ukraine. And we are doing the same here in Canada. And another takeaway from my trip to Toronto is Toronto is flooded with homeless people and drug addicts. And it's disgusting. I mean, I walked literally over because there was nowhere else to walk, probably about 4 or 5 bodies, which for all I know, they could have been absolutely dead. And police are standing there. They see me walk over them. They see them passed out. And they do nothing because there is not much to do because it starts from the top down. And, well, that's why we have to have an election and get these liberals the hell out of here, because our country is turning into not very good and people are really fed up. And speaking of not very good, let's take a look at the Bank of Canada. We're going to be looking at a recent update because they are going to be making an announcement within the next couple of days. But this is a bit of an older video when the Bank of Canada literally told people to go out and borrow money because interest rates were 0%. For those who don't know, let's have a bit of a refresher through this video.
The COVID-19 pandemic has caused an unprecedented fall in economic activity in Canada, and the recovery will require considerable monetary policy support. Our overriding message to Canadians is that the bank will be there to provide monetary stimulus for an extended period to support the recovery and to return inflation to the 2% target. Interest rates are very low, and they're going to be there for a long time. We recognize that Canadian businesses are facing an unusual amount of uncertainty. And so we have been unusually clear about the future path for interest rates. If you've got a mortgage, or if you're considering to make a major purchase, or you're a business and you're considering making an investment, you can be confident that interest rates will be low for a long time.
When this person inevitably dies, not as a threat, but we all die. That's the cycle of life. That should be on this person's gravestone. Those words that he just said. You can be assured that interest rates will remain low. So go out and borrow a lot of money, which is what a lot of people did. And I empathize so much because this has potentially ruined hundreds of thousands, no, millions of people's lives here in Canada, because the government officials, organizations that are tied to the government, the people that run the country said, go borrow money. Interest rates are at historic lows, 0%, 0.5%, 1%, 1.5%. You will never, ever see this again. And we assure you that we have a grasp on things, and it will remain this low for a very, very long time. It's literally verbatim what we just heard. And how's that working out? Now, when people have to renew their mortgages, we're looking at 7.5%, 8%, 9%, which I understand the people that can say back in my day, interest rates were 18 to 24%, but also like your house costs the same amount as my iPhone 13 or 14. So not exactly comparable from back then to now, because houses are, about 600 to 800,000 on average across Canada. And when you look in Ontario, you're looking at probably 900,000 medium pricing for any sort of home. So it's crazy. This guy is the devil, and he is one of Canada's most hated people, which says a lot because there's a lot of hated politicians here.
Low interest rates make spending and investment more affordable, and spending and investment will support the recovery. That would be our message to Canadians.
What a piece of garbage. I am feeling very, very bad about all of this. And with the coming announcement within the next couple of days, a lot of people are very nervous, because if they increase rates again, which seems like the most likely path, it's going to cause mass panic like we haven't seen yet in Canada. And there's going to be every fifth house or every 10th house on your street is going to go up for sale, because people will not be able to afford the remortgaging and, a new term and things like that. So it's getting ridiculous. Speaking of ridiculous, we have the Ontario minister, Steve Clark, has actually resigned from his cabinet position. And when you look at the comments, people are saying housing prices are never coming down. People are saying it's better, caught in a huge corruption scandal. A lot of people are not happy with Doug Ford and how Ontario has been running. Conservatives resign, Liberals shuffle their cabinets. I mean, it's not looking good. So there's a lot of speculation as to the reasons why he did this. Maybe he was trying to fix things, and they're like, nah, you're going to resign. We're going to keep things how they are. Or maybe it's the other way around. But let's take a look at CP24's breakdown.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think this has done to kind of erode the public's trust in the Ford government? And what do you think will kind of satiate, the need for transparency going forward?
Look, it's an $8.3 billion cash for your land scheme, and it's upset Ontarians. And the right thing to do for all members of this legislature is to open the books, to get the Premier to open the books. I think members on all sides have questions about this. It's like brown envelopes, deception, insider trading, unregistered lobbyists. It's too much. So we have to restore trust, and to do that, we need to ask questions about what happened.
Mm-hmm. And we heard a statement from Premier Doug Ford today, kind of reiterating this importance of building 1.5 million homes. We know that housing, of course, is this big issue that we're kind of dealing with, the lack of housing. Do you think that there is a kind of a proper way to go about this without involving the Greenland?
Well, yes. No, the government's own task force and the Auditor General said, you have enough land inside the cities right now. You can do this right now. You don't have to crack open the Greenbelt. Cracking open the Greenbelt was really more about land speculation and creating wealth for a few people who are already rich insiders, and some of whom the Premier says are his friends.
Mm-hmm. And Mr. Fraser, what do you think is kind of the next course of action for the Ford government? I know you talk about cracking open the books. If that doesn't happen, what now in terms of a further investigation?
Well, look, I think as legislators, we need to do that. The RCMP are considering an investigation. Here's what I can tell you. Our party, and I know all the opposition parties, we're not going to stop till we get to the bottom of this, because this is something, the government gave away something we put in trust for our children and their children and their children. And so we need to get to the bottom of this, and we're not going to let up, and it's not going away. This resignation doesn't make it go away. There's so many more things that we have to do to find out what happened here.
And this shouldn't just be this amount of pressure at the provincial level or municipal level. This also needs to bleed into the federal level, which we are just like a week and a bit, 2 weeks away at most from that happening, with question period and them coming back into parliament for finally sitting and doing their job. And you're going to see the Conservative government just really ream into the Liberals and Justin Trudeau and the Bank of Canada, put a lot of social pressure on. You're going to see viral clips going out every single day, which is why you should really consider subscribing to this channel if you haven't yet, with post notifications on, because we're getting into peak season of politics. The September to Christmas rush is going to be absolutely insane. And on top of that, with how the country's going, when they're probably going to be raising the interest rates in the next couple of days, which is going to obviously hurt millions of Canadians, but it's going to give even more ammunition, even more fire or fuel to the fire. And it's pissing people off. People that I never suspected would ever be interested in politics are now talking about politics, because it doesn't have to do with Trudeau did this or Trudeau did that. It's, why am I paying so much for gas? Why is our mortgage rates out of control? I can't afford a house. I mean, look at this chart right here. These are the G7 countries' real housing prices from Wall Street Silver on Twitter, who's a very reputable finance individual, right? The housing bubble in Canada is going to pop. Change in house prices for the G7 countries since 2000. It doesn't make any sense. We're not like this gold standard country. We're not like Switzerland or something. We don't have, or Luxembourg. We don't have gold bars for our princes and queens and duchesses. Like, Canada's a pretty average country. I know we got a AAA credit rating, as Mr. Speaker likes to say, but at the end of the day, we have beautiful, vast land. But in terms of our economy, we're not one of the most major competitors in the world. So for our housing prices to be this high in comparison to other countries, other massive superpower countries, United States, Japan, Britain, Germany, Italy, France, it just doesn't make any sense. So something needs to change. People are waking up, and I mean, it's just organically happening because everyone is being crushed financially in one way or another. And that's where we're going to end today's video, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love to know if you have any comments, questions, or concerns about any of the topics that I have brought up. Please consider subscribing, and I hope I earned your post notification by this point, because there's going to be a lot of very juicy and important updates happening in the coming days. So it's important to be notified of that. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Bye for now. Thanks so much for making it to the end of the video. If you want to support the channel financially, you can do so by checking out the merch shop linked right up there. Or if you want to do something for free, which is also absolutely acceptable and highly encouraged, you can subscribe right there. If you want to continue watching videos like this, you can do so by clicking or tapping right there to watch the next upcoming video. And if you want to watch a little bit of different content, but also Canadian stuff, you can do so by clicking right up there. That's my second channel, House of Canada, also known as the House of Commons Highlights. Thanks so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.